say? We were a legislative session that just got payback, spanked folk we didn't like.
Democrats in the House today pushed back on a bill to get the ball rolling for a committee to oversee the actions of Georgia's prosecutors. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on this day 11 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. On the show, we'll take a closer look at a couple of local issues on the state's radar this session: the Atlanta Police Training Center and conditions at the Fulton County Jail. Longtime law enforcement officer and Senate Majority Whip Randy Robertson joins us. Plus, we have legislators in the studio to discuss bills likely to stir debate. One will tell us about a move to put the abortion issue on the ballot for voters to decide on a constitutional amendment. Another lawmaker wants to designate public school bathrooms as exclusively male or female. Let's find out what happened first at the state capitol on this 11th legislative day from our Capitol correspondent, Sarah Callis.
Hi, Donna. Today, lawmakers in both chambers advanced controversial bills dealing with professional oversight. In the House, members reignited a fiery debate over House Bill 881, which deals with prosecutor oversight. The bill revises requirements to last year's bill, which created a prosecuting attorney's oversight commission. The commission would be able to investigate and remove district attorneys and prosecutors for incompetence. The new bill removes the need for the state Supreme Court's approval at the court's request. Supporters of the bill say it's necessary for accountability.
HB 881 allows this commission the ability to do the work that we've legislated and told them they need to do. It gives our constituents the confidence that their district attorney and solicitors general will uphold the law impartially and justly. Let's come together to pass HB 881, not just as a legislative act, but as a testament to our unwavering commitment to justice and the well-being of our communities.
Specifically, prosecutors in Georgia will not be above the law if you vote yes on House Bill 881.
But opponents say the commission is politically motivated and unnecessary.
HB 881 is not a solution. It is, at best, an unwieldy, confusing experiment.
It is so easy to tell other people how to do their jobs, isn't it? I mean, don't you feel like that when you go home sometimes? Somebody's telling you, you should have done this, you should have done that, you did this wrong, you did that right. It's really easy to complain from the cheap seats.
The bill passed 95 to 75 in a party line vote.
Constitutional majority is therefore passed.
The Senate started the morning recognizing the circle of life. Senator Russ Goodman asked the chamber for a moment of silence to remember South Georgia native and Army Specialist Kennedy LaDawn Sanders, who lost her life in a recent drone attack on U.S. service members at an outpost near the Syrian border in Jordan.
She'd been described as fun-loving, always smiling, and a big kid at heart. Her family and friends often referred to her by her nickname, Munchkin. Born on July the 24th, 1999, Kennedy served in the Army Rangers with the rank of with the Army Reserves with the rank of sergeant, and eventually wanted to go full active duty in the service to her country and pursue a career in radiology technology. She was 24 years old when she gave her life for her country.
Senator Nabila Islam Parks brought happier news to the Senate floor.
Me and my husband are expecting a new addition to our family. I am pregnant and will be due in August, so I'm super excited. I already have two beautiful bonus daughters, and I'm really excited to expand our family, and I just wanted my other family to know.
Afterward, beauty service licensing became a surprising bone of contention on the floor.
All this bill does is simply, it's very narrowly tailored. It's not talking about people that cut hair or color hair, any of that. It's just strictly, you'll see on line 32 through 38, the definition of blow-dry styling, and then applying cosmetics also in the bill, but it's strictly those two narrow areas that you would not be required to have a cosmetology license to do.
SB 354 would no longer require licensing for people who perform certain jobs, namely shampooing and blow drying, in the cosmetology and hairstyling profession. But not everyone thinks it's a good idea.
My conviction in upholding licensing requirements has been reinforced through conversations I've had with over 30 industry professionals in my district, specifically hairdressers and barbers, who predominantly serve an African American customer base. Their feedback was strikingly clear. Every single one of them stressed how vital sanitation training is. And this unanimous view really brings to light the need for a more balanced approach in this industry, one that values hands-on training while also emphasizing the importance of education and sanitation, something that is a core part of the licensing process.
After much debate on the floor, the bill was passed 38-15. Also today, Senate Republicans gave an update on their priorities for the legislative session. They said they will focus on tort reform, reducing taxes, public safety, and school choice.
Every one of these accomplishments in their own right are generational opportunities to make life better for the people we serve. Big ideas, big wins, and a big finish to this 2023-2024 convening of the Georgia General Assembly.
Lawmakers will return to the Capitol tomorrow for Day 12, where leaders from both chambers are expected to make an announcement about tax credits. That's all for my Capitol Report. Donna, back to you.
Sarah, thank you for that wrap-up. Now, with me is Republican Senate Majority Whip Randy Robertson of Catala. He is Vice Chair of the Public Safety Committee and chairs the Senate's Fulton County Jail Public Safety Subcommittee. He has worked in law enforcement for much of his career. Welcome to Lawmakers. Thanks, and I got Catala right. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm proud of you. Thank you.
I was able to do it. You weren't able to make it last week, but so we had a lot of issues to talk about. We're going to talk about them today. I want to start with what Sarah discussed, and that was the cosmetology bill. Did you expect that to be as heated as it became?
Absolutely not. It was one of those surprises that come up when we think it's a simple bill, which is a phrase used a lot at the Capitol, and it became very complicated very quickly. Luckily, the debate, we were able to work out a lot of the details, and it passed, and now it'll move over to our friends over on the House side.
Okay, interesting bill. So we're going to get into public safety with you as always. You've been very, very vocal about support of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think starting back in 2020, there was a lot of conversation. There was a lot of people upset about law enforcement training, about law enforcement professionalism, and the city of Atlanta rightly looked at the aging infrastructure of their training center that they had here in the city, which, to the best of my recollection, is something from back in the 60s. It is a deplorable building that you would ask anybody to go in and train, and I have trained there myself during my career. And so they came up with a solution. And a lot of individuals, I think, have allowed their personal feelings toward law enforcement and toward just unique cases involving law enforcement misconduct color their opinion on the Public Safety Training Center, which we need to remember is not just going to be there to train police officers. It's there to train firefighters, EMTs, and others who the citizens of Atlanta depend on when they dial 911 and need somebody to come to their aid.
I think people were a little surprised that the state became involved in an opinion on this.
Yeah, well, you know, the state, in our state constitution, there's a list of things that cities are required to provide. I think there's a list of about 11 that cities look at and pick and choose. And one thing we have to remember is city councilors represent the citizens of Atlanta, the mayor represents the citizens of Atlanta, but those of us in the General Assembly, we represent every citizen in this state, and every decision we make up there impacts everybody. And when public safety is the concern, then I think it's our responsibility to stand up and give our opinion on exactly what's going on.
Okay, another issue that's kind of Atlanta, as I mentioned earlier, you chair the Senate's Fulton County Jail Public Safety Subcommittee. It was created last year after 10 deaths at the jail. We've had another person die this year. Before we talk about what happened today, I wanted you to talk a little bit about the purpose of the committee? Why was the subcommittee created?
Well, the subcommittee was created because of a lot of response that we got from concerned citizens and others within the community that were concerned about the reports that were coming out of the Fulton County Jail. I have a unique experience where my career started out a long, long time ago working in a large jail. And a lot of people in the community, they drive by them every day, but the jail is an extremely important part of any community. It is a building that operates 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and inside that building are the citizens that live in that community, whether they are the corrections officers and deputy sheriffs that work there, or whether they are the citizens who are detained there awaiting to experience due process based on whatever the charge may be.
Okay, so you had a chance to take a tour of it, but then also last week, very, very early, like a 7 a.m. public hearing you had, and you talked to, among those who spoke was Sheriff Pat Labatt, and here's what he told you about the Fulton County Jail.
We had a high, all-time high coming out of COVID of 3,600 detainees, 600 people sleeping on the floor. Yesterday's count was 2,707. We're trying to get it below 2,600 or 2,600.
Remind us what your bed count is.
So the bed count is now, it's still, originally the facility was built for 1,100 detainees.
We understand they doubled the population
Correct.
of the square footage.
Correct.
But
double bunking.
Right, double bunked, which is
Correct.
a terrible idea. What is your capacity?
So right now, our goal is to try and get the main jail below 1,600.
Below 1,600, even though the capacity was 1,100 at one point. What do you think of the progress? He talked about progress.
You know, it's amazing. We've seen progress on all levels. You know, there are four primary groups responsible for the operation of a county jail. Number one is the county commission who provides the funding. Number two is the sheriff who provides the management. Number three is the district attorney's office that moves the cases in and out of the jail. And then the fourth is the judiciary that ensures everything's done constitutionally and that due process is applied the way it should be to the men and women who are being held in the county jail. And so it's amazing that each of those four sectors, since we've started our committee meetings, have all started to engage better with each other. And I think we're starting to see some movement that's extremely positive.
Yeah, it was a good ending to that meeting, and I know you've got some more to do on that. I want to talk about another area. You've been involved with the Grace Commission with First Lady Marty Kemp and the crackdown on human trafficking. You had a bill last year, SB 36, you first introduced it, on pimping and pandering. What's the latest on that?
It's sitting across the Capitol with our friends over in the House. And the reason it's extremely important to me is again, my law enforcement career, there was a lot of opportunities that we had to deal with the individuals who were being trafficked on the street. And, you know, what we have to do, I think, and First Lady Marty Kemp has done a great job, but I think what we have to do is we have to attack the supply and demand. So my legislation, what it would do is make pimping, which is now a misdemeanor, when you get arrested for pimping the first time, it would make it a felony. And for the men that go out and purchase these individuals that are charged with pandering, right now it's a misdemeanor. And I also want to make that a felony, because I don't think there's any society that lasts when selling human flesh, selling individuals with souls to be abused and sexually assaulted. I just don't see the sustainability of the moral fiber that's required. So I think we need to send a strong message to those men who feel it's okay to sell and buy women and children for their sexual pleasure.
You mentioned that it's in the House right now. Where does it stand, and how are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling really positive about it. We worked on it a lot over with the Judicial Non-Civil Committee. Chairwoman Hong had the bill, and we did a lot of work with them to ensure that we didn't inadvertently catch an innocent in the net while we're doing this. So I feel very positive that we're going to be able to get it out of committee over there, back to the House floor, and get it passed out and get it to Governor Kemp for his signature.
Okay, and because, you know, First Lady Kemp is a part of that, I'm sure that's something they're that he's interested in. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit from public safety because another area that you're interested in, you spoke before the Senate Ethics Committee and you told them that you oppose ranked choice voting. Tell us about that and why.
Yeah, ranked choice voting has been around since the 1900s, and it was used in the United States, started out primarily being used in other places around the world, and it eventually faded away as it was seen as a confusing and dysfunctional way to elect community leaders. And then in the late 1990s, early 2000s, a few municipalities brought it back. And what ranked choice voting basically does is if 5 individuals are running for a seat, then you vote for the one you want, and then you rank the other 4, second, third, fourth, or fifth. And then there's a process where they go through, they count the ballots the first time, and then one person's eliminated. Then they count them a second time, another person's eliminated, and they continue counting them until they come out with someone who has 50 plus 1, percent, so that you can determine who your leader is. It's a very confusing process. It was done in the Twin Cities in Minnesota a few years back, I think 2013, where they had a huge mayor's race. Right. And there were approximately 40,000 combinations on this one confusing ballot.
Well, I know they've used it in the military, and I know this is an issue that a lot of people have different opinions on, so we're going to see how that goes.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for coming on the show today, and I hope you'll come back.
I always enjoy coming.
All right, hope your daughter is watching too, your little one. Yeah. Coming up, a look at legislation on abortion access and public school bathrooms designated for one sex or another.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
People put their faith in PBS because they know that it is constantly delivering quality. It covers the whole of the United States. It's a free and independent media.
We go where the viewers are.
What are the conversations that are happening right now?
We feel that civil discourse is a civic responsibility.
What we do is authentic reporting that people can trust.
We give time so you can hear voices on all sides of an issue.
This is the place that people turn to for stories that matter.
And they know that when they walk away, they will have learned something about the world around them.
That's why this makes PBS important for daily life and, in the end, our world.
Thank you for joining us.
Community. Learning, working, playing, celebrating, doing life is always better together. At GPB, we aim to provide you with the tools to be able to do life together well. Our mission to educate, inform, and entertain inspires everything from our wide range of programming to our stimulating radio conversations to our fun in-person events. We've got something for everyone. Visit gpb.org/community to learn more about our upcoming events.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. Let's dig into a couple of areas of health and safety with our guests. Joining me are Democratic Representative Kim Schofield of Atlanta. Among her House committees are Health, Small Business Development, and Urban Affairs. And Republican Representative Josh Bonner of Fayetteville. He is chairman of the House Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee, which is probably a busy one. So both of you, welcome to Lawmakers.
Thank you.
Chairman Bonner, we're going to start with you. You're a co-sponsor on a bill, Representative Mitchell Scoggins' bill to designate public school bathrooms for exclusively to be used by either males or females. Tell us about it.
So thank you, Donna. House Bill 936 is simply a common sense approach to protecting Georgia's children that are in our K-12 public and charter schools. It simply says that we'll default to the children's birth certificates when determining which facilities to use, whether that's a restroom, whether that's a locker room, and it also applies to overnight field trips. So it just says that if it says male on your birth certificate, that you use the boys' room in the locker room. If it says female on your birth certificate, you use the female facilities. And if there is a child that is struggling with issues of identity, the bill requires that the school make what we call a reasonable accommodation so that that child is able to use facilities that are separate.
So that's a separate bathroom from either one of the male or female.
That's correct.
Because you'd like the bathrooms to actually say exclusively male or exclusively female, right?
Well, they're simply labeled as they are
that way.
right now. They're labeled, boys' room, girls' room, and the bill just stipulates that's who would use them. And if there is a child that is struggling with issues of identity, that the school would be required to make a reasonable accommodation to provide them facilities to either change, use the restroom, and they would not be able to have boys and girls mixed in an overnight field trip.
Yeah, let's talk about the field trip. Talk about how that might work.
Certainly, again, that reasonable accommodation still applies, so that rather than have boys in girls' rooms and vice versa, that if there was a child that was struggling with issues of identity, that they'd be provided a separate room.
Yeah, and then there is a penalty involved, right? Through the public the
Public Standards
Commission,
yeah.
right?
There is due process so that in the event that this law is violated, there is a course of action through the commission that could result in a fine for that teacher, for that principal, or that administrator.
Okay. Well, thank you for telling us about that bill. We're going to switch gears a little bit here. Representative Schofield, you're a signer on a bill to get a constitutional amendment to codify abortion access in the state constitution. It was introduced last year, and you're hoping that it moves along this year. Tell us about it.
Yes, thank you for having me, Donna.
Yeah.
It's time. Across this world and this nation, we are hearing the clarion cry of women, especially when it comes to access to reproductive freedoms. We know that Ohio has been successful, but we here in Georgia feel that it's time for the people to have a voice as to what they want to see on the ballot. And so I listen to women and men across this state that are saying simply, we want to make the choice for ourselves. We do not want government coming in and infringing on the rights of our reproductive freedom. So I think that it's only the right thing to do if we want to continue to give people access and engage them in their own decision making. Because let's face it, this is about our body. It's about the decisions and choices that we make without the government. I've never made it a doctor's appointment and had to call my legislator before I made that appointment to see what he thought.
So you want to go the amendment route. Explain what that means to people who may not understand.
So it means the constitutional amendment we've taken away the rights for women to make choices about whether they want to have an abortion or have a pregnancy. And so this simply says that we want the opportunity to put it on the ballot as a referendum to vote. Simply, yes or no.
Do you think you'll get it to a committee?
I'm hoping that Georgia will do the right thing by giving the people their voice and making sure that we do get hearings and that we hear from the people where this matters most, not the legislators.
This is part of the Democratic priorities too, isn't it?
Yes, Democrats fight hard when it comes to reproductive freedom.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on how that bill does too. Switching back over to you, Chairman Bonner, you filed a bill last week, HB 995, that would allow 11th and 12th graders in high school access to different aptitude tests. And these predict things from academics, occupational goals, the military where you might go in. Talk about that and why you wanted to go for it.
So this bill was brought to us by our friends over the Georgia National Guard. It's specific to the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. Essentially, it's a test for 11th and 12th graders to determine what jobs within the military service they have the most aptitude for. And so there are some schools throughout the state that are not providing access to this test, and all the bill simply does is says that if you have an 11th and 12th grader that wants to take this assessment, you've got to make them available. There's no cost to the school system. The military covers the cost of the test, the cost of any transportation. They take care of everything. But it's meant to expose more of our young folks to the military and the opportunities available. As you well know, our recruiting numbers are down, and as evidenced by the earlier story with those service members that gave their life, we need good quality folks to fill those ranks moving forward to defend our country.
And you have a military background. Tell us about it.
I do. I've 26 years in the Army, still currently serving in the Army Reserves, just like the folks that we mentioned earlier. I've had an incredible career and so thankful for that service and very proud to be a part of that.
What would the aptitude test have said for you?
It probably would have had me digging latrines, but fortunately I did a little better than that.
Okay. Well, I think I told you earlier I had an aptitude test in high school, said plumbing for me, so but I'm here. I'm glad to do it. We'll keep up to date on that one and see where that bill goes too.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to switch back to you. I know that a lot of your focus has been on poverty. And among other things, you are very interested in helping students who are living in poverty. And one of the things you have been really focused on has been the so-called period tax on products for people who, in particular on women getting menstrual products, but also people who are in poverty, children who need to get those products and are paying extra for it. Talk about a lot of that. That's kind of a big issue for you.
It is a big issue for me because when I got started, I didn't realize how broad this project was. You know, there were students that were missing school because they did not have access or could not afford period products. And so working to not only get the tax removed off the products, it is also looking at access and affordability. And as I went deeper down this road, started looking at the products in and of themselves, where the materials used in the products are materials that can be hazardous and toxic to us. So looking at creating more transparency with menstrual products so that we are not contributing to STDs and other diseases that young people experience. This is not something that we talk about, the chemicals that are used. So in addition to having the access, I need people and our students to have the right access and the right products when it comes to their menstrual cycle.
Yeah, so children living in poverty overall, you also have a bill that focuses on that. Talk about that. It's kind of separate
Donna,
from that one.
it's sad when we know that we are a state that prides itself in the love of the protections of people, that children are sleeping in their cars, that they are living in not just food deserts, but it's really healthy food deserts. There's got a lot of fast foods with no nutritional value. And the wraparound services that don't come along and that are insufficient in our under-resourced community says a lot about where we value. You know, there's a Bible verse that says, where your heart is, your treasures follow. We need to do more in making sure that our students are not living in poverty, that they have access to stable housing, they have access to fresh and healthy food, they have access to see a doctor. These are democratic values that we uphold, and these should be values for all.
What can you do with this bill that you've introduced?
We can start, again, taking some of that money that's sitting in our coffer and buried under and start putting it to resources. There are bills such as children in need of services. There are other resources, wraparound services. There's mental health. Imagine the trauma that children face when they're living in poverty. Let's get the parents working. Let's get the family back together. We as a state have to do better.
Yeah. How do you feel about that bill and how do you feel about the period tax bill, getting rid of that 4% tax on menstrual products? How do you think it's going to do?
Getting rid of that tax is the right thing to do. This is not something that should have been dragged on this long time. It is time, and we have a pathway to do some tax incentives to get that bill removed. We have a pathway to make sure that the products and the money that you are taxing that goes for period products can be used for something else.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you both for being here today. That does it for Lawmakers today. We'll be back tomorrow for Legislative Day 12. Good night.